Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am half the team here, Jacob Milham, joined by my better half, Jeremy Greco. But also, we have our special guest this evening, editor of Royals Review, Max Rieper. Jeremy, how are we feeling?
uh, you know, we're
We are. Max, can you confirm we are here?
We are here in spirit and in body, yes.
And virtually. You can do all those things too with other Kansas City Royals fans if you go check out royalsreview.com. The game threads. I'm going to have a little hot take about the game threads later on in the episode. The game recaps, Royals rumblings, and so much more over at royalsreview.com. If you want to be the best Royals fan you can be, that's the spot to go check out. All right, guys. So, Jeremy, I feel like we got really spoiled early on in the season where we were in really good drumbeat. We would record on Wednesday evenings. We would know the series result, if you will, for the Royals, and then we would record on Sunday evenings and have the series result. Fortunately, as the season goes along, the schedule gets a little bit more wonky, it seems like, and we are recording this a few hours ahead of the series finale down in Houston. Jeremy, how are you feeling about the series finale before just cold take?
like I said when we were kind of previewing the series, I thought the Royals would go 1-2. So they can't do any worse than that. So
Yeah.
last night obviously a frustrating loss, but I don't feel like I can really complain.
Fair enough. And we're going to talk about kind of the difference that we saw from the Royals on Monday and on Tuesday a little bit later on in the episode. But Max, how are you feeling against the series finale against the Houston Astros?
Well, I was encouraged they won the opener because you have facing Framber Valdez in the second game, and that's a daunting challenge. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and not a surprise he shut down the Royals pretty well. But then in the series finale, they're going against a rookie pitcher getting called up from AAA, which you would think, okay, that you'd be licking your lips at that, but the Royals have not. At least anecdotally, it seems like they haven't done well against guys just up from the minors. And I'm actually, before we started this, I was actually trying to put together some research on how the Royals have fared against guys just up from the minors. So look for that maybe later this week or early next week. But we'll have to see how the lineup does against lefty Colton Gordon, who is
Yeah.
just getting called up from AAA today.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I feel like they struggled last year specifically against the Astros pitcher making their MLB debut. I am blanking on. I think it might be Spencer Allegretti is how you say
Yeah,
his
I
last
think that's
name.
right. Yeah.
So they don't have a great track record, but we will see how they do to cap off this road trip down to Texas. They do have an off day on Thursday, so no matter what the result is Wednesday evening, that should be a good thing. But I guess should we consider it an off day because so many Royals are going to be at the Champions Gala that evening? I guess all the pomp and circumstance that is there in Kansas City, but they better get their rest ahead of a weekend set against the St. Louis Cardinals. All right, Jeremy, let's go and start off with the bad because it's fresh in our mind. Let's talk about Tuesday night's loss a little bit. What was stinging the most for you?
Reminds me, honestly, it reminded me very strongly of a game last year, which in some ways might be a good sign because last year's Royals went to the playoffs. But there was a start, Cole Reagans versus Framber Valdez in September, where Cole was dealing and Valdez was dealing. And the Royals ended up losing a pitcher's duel. And last night, Valdez was dealing. Chris Bubich was dealing. And ultimately, Valdez came out on top. It's one of those things where I think a lot of people are going to look at this as an opportunity to say the Royals offense stinks. And it does. But Framber Valdez just has their number. I think at this point we can say Framber Valdez is, like Max said, he's one of the best pitchers in the game. And he especially owns the Royals, so you're going to lose most of the time when you face him, and that's just the way it's got to be.
Max, what are your thoughts about Tuesday's loss?
No, I largely echo that. I think Valdez is always going to be tough. I mean, the fact that Bubich was able to match him, I think, great sign for him. I kind of keep expecting him to regress a little bit, but he just keeps looking like a stud out there and kind of proving me wrong because I was a little skeptical of him going into the season. But I think last night's game kind of illustrated to me that we're really missing Hunter Harvey right now because you talk about Bubich dealing, but Lucas Erceg was dealing too in the middle innings. And, you're not going to have him, I guess, pitch the ninth, even though he only had 12 pitches. And, they had to turn to John Schreiber, who did John Schreiber things and gave up a home run on the second pitch to Isaac Paredes. And that's a situation where, if you're not going to turn to Carlos Estevez because you're going to, I guess, save him for a save opportunity, then you really need a guy like Hunter Harvey who can go out there and miss some bats and maybe make things a little harder for the Astros and extend that game a little bit. And they didn't have that, and you had to turn to Schreiber instead. So that's where we're missing him. And I really haven't heard much about his how long they're expecting him out. I mean, it sounds like those back issues can be pretty chronic, and it seems like something he was dealing with a lot last year. So really, really missing him right now.
Max, so you bring up Schreiber, who was like, he on paper it made sense to go to him in that situation, and frankly, Q's gone to him in pretty high leverage spots. I think last I looked, his average leverage indicator came in at third on the Royal squad, only trailing Carlos Estevez and Lucas Urseg. So that was a little surprising to me, but he has performed well for most of the season. It is just frustrating that the Royals pitching staff could not get enough run support to back that up. Jeremy, I see the strange look on your face. What did I say?
You didn't say anything. I just pulled up Schreiber's numbers, and they are weird to me.
Okay.
So last season, he had a 3.66 ERA, a 3.94 Sierra, and that was good for a 1.1 FWAR.
Yeah.
Which is pretty solid for a reliever. This year, I'm like, man, he's been doing so much better. And I look, strikeouts are way up, walks are down. He has a 2.12 ERA and a 3.01 Sierra, both significantly better than last year, and a negative 0.2 FWAR.
Has he blown that many games?
Yeah, I don't know. He's got 7 shutdowns and 3 meltdowns. His home runs are way up, but I think that's probably a kind of a fluke. I mean, he's thrown 17 innings, and the home run numbers are just, he's given up 2 home runs, so that just looks weird. If he doesn't give up a home run for the rest of the year, which is kind of what he did last year with a 0.17 home runs per 9, then he'll be fine. But yeah, you and Max talk about, Hunter Harvey trying to come back, or, if we had Hunter Harvey, we wouldn't use Schreiber in that inning. Schreiber's been really good this year, whatever the FWAR says. I think the issue last night was more, that was his 3rd outing in a row. And so I just want to clarify that, yeah, with Harvey, you'd have an extra option in your bullpen instead of, a Chris Stratton, who's not going to help you there, instead of having to go to a guy for a 3rd night in a row. But I also wonder that it honestly brings up the bullpen question of, could we not have gone to Daniel Lynch? Or well, you couldn't go to Steven Cruz either, because he'd already pitched a bunch. And you'd already used Urseg. I don't know. I'm blanking on who all is in the bullpen right now. Going to Schreiber for a 3rd time in a row, yeah, Hunter Harvey would be better than Schreiber for a 3rd time in a row, but I also wonder, could there have been a better choice even in the bullpen they had?
I mean, Max, does anyone jump off the page at you? Because I think that maybe this is one of those instances where having guys like Chris Stratton, having middling guys like Angel Zerpa, where it really can shoot a team in the foot.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Once you get past the top guys, it's kind of, you could make a argument for or against using any of those guys. And it does make me laugh when on Twitter, like when I see people criticizing Quatraro, like it always just comes after the fact, like, oh, why do they put in Daniel Lynch? You should have pitched another guy. It's like, well, you didn't say anything beforehand. And the next night, it's like, why didn't they put in this guy instead of Daniel Lynch? Like it's hard. It's hard to find the right matchups. And yeah, like carrying a guy like Chris Stratton is gonna make it much more difficult, because he's basically a guy who can only pitch in blowout situations. So like, why are we carrying this guy at this point in the season? So I don't know how much longer he has left. I thought by mid-May you should know whether or not he's going to be solid or not, and he hasn't really done anything to justify a roster spot at this point.
Yeah, and I'm looking at, so I brought up Stratton and Serpa specifically, but I didn't realize until just right now, neither one of those guys, it's May 14th when we're recording this, neither one of those guys have pitched since May 10th. So they've just been holding down a warm spot there on the bullpen bench. I'm a little surprised, but I guess you would just think that you would cycle through your bullpen arms a little bit more. But I don't want to get too in the weeds on like, oh, well, who should they look at Omaha, or who should they look to trade for and things like that. I think the bullpen on a game by game basis, feel like we say this at least once or twice a month. You never know who's going to come through that bullpen door, even when it's one of the best pitchers in your bullpen. How many, Jeremy, I think you brought it up. There was a Hall of Famer who said it was like the 33, 33, 33, like 33% of your outings are going to be
That
great.
wasn't me.
That wasn't you? Oh, man.
I think that might have been like a Ryan or Rex thing.
Maybe so. But basically, like 1/3 of the time, pitcher's going to be great. 1/3, they're going to be okay. And then 1/3, they're just going to be bad. That's just the nature of batting. But there is a lot to like about this pitching staff still, and it still gets overshadowed, unfortunately, by some lackluster scoring. So I do want to point this out. Since that doubleheader against the Rockies, the Royals bullpen has allowed 1 run or fewer in 17 of their 20 games, including 11 games with no runs allowed, period. Like this is on the level of an elite bullpen that Royals fans really wanted for so long. Like, frankly, I feel like they did it on the cheap, like
Yeah.
on kind of easily. Like, Max, do you think that Royals fans are underestimating how good the bullpen is?
I mean, yeah, and there's potential to get better, right? I mean, that's with Sam Long pitching terribly to start the year and Chris Stratton not pitching well. Angel Zerpa hasn't really pitched that well. So there's a possibility they can get better. I mean, I really, they need to be trying some more of these guys in Omaha. I mean, Steven Cruz came up and has looked really solid. Like he could be a member of this, a really important member of this bullpen. And there are other guys down there. Andrew Hoffman, I think someone in our comments today pointed out, he's got like a 30-4 strikeout to walk ratio in AAA right now. And he's 25, and like this is the time you should be seeing what you have with him. So and look, they were able to kind of patch together a pretty decent bullpen by the end of last year. There's going to be opportunities to do that at the trade deadline. Obviously, hitting is more of a concern right now, but you're right. I think they've cobbled together a pretty good pen without having to expend a lot of resources to do so. And this is still a bullpen I think that has some upside left that can get better.
Yeah, agreed. Jeremy, so I feel like we are glossing a little bit over Monday night's victory, and I don't want to do that because I felt like what I was seeing from Royals fans was for the first time in a while, there wasn't a but this or a but that. Like, oh, well, the Royals won, but this was bad, or they won because of that. It was just a good victory for the Royals, or am I wrong? Was it a big old but?
There's a little bit of a but. There's a small but. It's the fact that they had the 7-0 lead and they let it get back to be a save situation. That forced them to use Urseg, and he pitched again last night. So he's probably not available tonight.
Probably
They
not.
might be willing to pitch him tonight since they do have an off day Thursday. And boy, it would feel really good to pull out a series win here. So maybe you push him. Maybe you're deep enough into the season where you're willing to push guys like that. But he also had to get up and get up, get down, get up again, getting the 2 outs and then getting the 8th inning. So, but having him pitch on Monday does it at least makes it harder, makes him potentially less effective for tonight. So that's kind of the only but. I guess you could also say there's a but of they scored all their runs in 2 innings and the offense was missing for the other 7.
Yeah.
Completely missing. That's also kind of an issue. And then they didn't show up again last night. And of course, that was Framber Valdez and the Astros have a pretty good bullpen. So to not score against those guys isn't embarrassing necessarily. And they did at least beat up on the young guy. So that maybe gives you some hope for tonight. Honestly, I know that we were talking a little bit earlier about, he's a rookie, he's a left-hander, what are the Royals going to do? But Hunter Brown would normally have this spot. Would you rather face him?
No.
So
no.
I think the Royals are getting kind of a break. Hopefully they'll take advantage of it.
Hopefully so. Max, I do want to. One of the biggest highlights for me personally from that Monday night victory was Jonathan India. He had a 3-hit night on Monday. He reached 3 times on Tuesday night with 2 singles and a hit by pitch. And it seems like he's kind of turned a corner. Do you think that that's the case, or is this just a little bit of luck from the leadoff man?
No, I think you're right. I think this is about the time of year where you see guys that are struggling that have track records of success start to turn things around a little bit. And so he's been an established big leaguer for the last 4 or 5 years, and he's been really solid. It stinks that he's gotten off to a kind of a struggling start and not made that trade look so good. But I think he's going to come around by the end of the year. too concerned about him, especially compared to other guys in the lineup. So I think that'll be huge to have a guy like that at the top of the lineup starting to put it together. And we're seeing some signs of life from the offense lately. I think the seven runs, even though it did come in just 2 innings, is an encouraging sign. I mean, like they haven't had that much in the last month, so it'd be nice to see them get. And like Houston is has a tough pitching staff. It's it's a bandbox of a park, but that's been a kind of a Achilles heel for the Royals in the past. They've struggled in places like Yankee Stadium before, so it was nice to see them get the bats going there. Hopefully, it carries over against the Cardinals, because I always like to see the Royals beat up on the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this I-70 series. Jeremy, I have not made you a believer in the idea that the Royals' true rival is the Cardinals, or the closest thing that they have to it are the Cardinals. But I always look forward to this.
Here's my hot take, Jacob. Is I think the
Okay.
Cardinals are the Royals' closest rival, but I don't think the Royals are the Cardinals' biggest rival.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's I'm trying to think of how that is. Like, that's kind of how the Kansas State Kansas rivalry felt in football for so many years, and on the flip side, that's how it felt in basketball. Kansas State always circles that game on the calendar, but for KU, it's just another day at field house.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything, because I would also say that the Yankees are the Mets' biggest rival, but the Mets are not the Yankees' biggest rival. That's the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was like, who is it? Oh, wait, yeah, one of the greatest rivalries in all of baseball. All right. Sorry, we're already getting a little bit off track here. Sorry about that, guys. So we've brought up a couple of struggling Royals players, whether it be pitchers, whether it be batters, for guys not named Hunter Renfroe or Chris Stratton, because I feel like that's easy picking. Are there any Royals on the 26-man roster that you are particularly worried about, or like, hey, this is getting a little dicey as we get past the quarter mark? Max, does anyone come to mind in that regard?
I'm a little concerned about Vinnie Pasquantino. I mean, I know that he's had some power in the last week or so, but his numbers aren't really where I think they need to be for him to be that middle of the bat lineup, bat in the lineup. And so, they really need to get him going. So he's kind of the one guy I'm looking at. Salvi, I know the underlying metrics look pretty good for him still. There's a little more swing and miss than I'd like to see, so I don't know if he's maybe pressing a little bit, but he's still, his age, if anything, gives me a little concern more than anything. I don't know, Jeremy, like, I know you've talked a little bit about Salvi as kind of a, I guess, candidate to hit. Is his advancing age drawing concern for you at all? Is this because once it goes,
Yeah.
So my position on Salvi is kind of, last year I said, I don't know, guys. He's getting old. They should have traded him in the offseason. Now what are they? And he turned in one of his best seasons ever. So I'm not really willing to spend a lot of time worrying about Salvi. I'll let Salvi worry about Salvi, and then we'll kind of get there. I think is like, could age catch up to him this year? Yeah. Am I going to predict it ever again after what he did to me last year? No.
And I do want to focus on Salvi here a little bit, because he is a guy who's getting a lot of attention right now. He is hitless in this Houston Astros series just through 2 games, and the power just hasn't been there as much this year. And to Max, go ahead.
That's the biggest concern, I think. He's got swing and miss in his game. He's going to go through rough streaks because of that. But the fact that he hasn't hit a home run in over a month, I don't know if he's ever gone a month without hitting a home run in his entire career.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing that concerns me a little bit, and I posted about this on the Royals Rundown Pod Twitter, go give us a follow so you don't miss this sort of stuff. I was looking at Salvi's rolling expected WOBA, because that was the expected WOBA was something even the broadcast was bringing up during games. It's like, hey, this is an expected number that shows Salvi will turn a corner, and he turned a corner for about a week. And that's because he was starting to get some of those balls to fall on the warning track, things like that. But just his xWOBA has fallen off an absolute cliff. He posted a season high 449 on May 7th. That's what he was on May 7th. That's an elite mark. That is great. And as we sit here and record today as of May 12th, it was 371. He's been so bad in in a week that it's dropped 70 points. I get it that we're still early in the season. But that just seems like an egregious drop in my mind, and it sort of reflects how quickly he's fallen off in the eyes of Royals fans, unfortunately. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I have to throw it out there. One
Please do.
point of concern. Sorry, what was that?
I said, please do.
Oh, yeah. One point of concern is that hip injury that he suffered that had him out for 2 games. If you I pulled up his game logs on Fangraphs just now, and I took just the section where after he came back after the hip injury, he's batting 195 with a 227 OBP and a 244 slug. That is good for a 26 WRC plus. There's no power in there. There's no on base. There's just nothing. It kind of makes you wonder, should he be playing right now?
But Max, I mean, I feel like this is just the normal that we expect from Salvador Perez at this point in his career, right?
Well, yeah, and I do wonder, like Jeremy, like how banged up him and Vinnie are. I mean, Vinnie had that hamstring injury. Salvi's had the hip injuries. What concerns me is that we're in May, and he's only caught 19 out of 42 games. He's been a lot at first base and DH a lot. And kind of the thought was, well, if he's at first base and DH, that's going to save his legs and he's going to be able to hit better. We haven't even hit the summer months where he's squatting behind the plate. And so if he's not hitting now, how is he going to hit in July if he is asked to catch a little bit more? Now, thankfully, Freddie Fermin is the best backup, I think, in baseball. But, if Salvi's DHing and he's not even hitting, he's not really providing any kind of value. So that does concern me going forward. Now, I guess I don't want to be like business crass, but like he is on the last year of his contract, at least what they're obligated. They have an option for next year. We'll see what happens. So it's not like the Royals are under like a huge albatross contract if he doesn't hit. But you'd like to see him kind of continue to hit and be a productive hitter, if nothing more than just to kind of cement his legacy. And we all love Salvi and want to see him do well. So I'd like to see him finish strong here this season. But, kind of like Jeremy alluded, he has a way of kind of confounding, traditional player aging curves and just, how does a guy that swings at everything have this kind of success? So we'll see. I could see him going on a tear in July where he just is unconscious and hitting balls out of the ballpark. So who knows?
So hold on, Jeremy. I have two random. I have something that I can't let slide from Max because he said something about Freddie for me, that Freddie was the best backup catcher in baseball. And I'm sorry, Max. But have you seen Luke Maley's jawline? Have you seen the smolder?
It's a handsome man. I'm not gonna lie.
Sorry, I had to get that in there. And Jeremy, one thing that I want to point out to you on Salvi is how when you go to Baseball Savant, they give you the player similarity scores by year, even not just over their entire career. Right now, showing up in Salvi's player similarity score for his batting profile is the 2022 version of Hunter Renfroe.
So you're saying Salvi is good enough to get a 2-year, $13 million contract from the Royals?
People.
Yeah. So Jeremy, now that I've given you that sour taste in your mouth, please go continue.
You've blown all the thoughts out of my head with that one. What was I gonna say? I don't know. Max, you were saying something while I was.
I really threw you for a loop.
No, I'm just saying that means Max. He's good enough to get a 2-year, $13 million contract from the Royals if he's Hunter Renfroe in 2022.
Hey, you know what? That might be the move. That might be the move, Max.
I remembered. I wanted to ask. Somebody asked me. I think it was in the rumblings or on social media. Or maybe they didn't ask me, and I just saw it, and I was like, I'm going to respond to this because I am on the internet, and everything said there is addressed to me. Somebody suggested that Salvi should be demoted in the order, and my immediate response was, you can't do that. He's the captain. But what do you guys think that the Royals can do that, or will do that, or should do that?
Personally, I think they would do it if they had that much better of an option to bat cleanoff, or bat cleanup. Excuse me,
cleanoff,
the leadoff man in the cleanup position. No, but there's no other guy who has the same track record as Salvi, and also it does send some sort of message to the team. And I know some fans might not be opposed to it. Sending a message like, hey, no matter how good you've done in the past. We need to focus on right now. I understand the contingent of fans that want that. However, I don't know. That might just be a big morale boost, like hit to see Salvi drop in the lineup to where it's kind of inconsequential. But Max, I think I cut you off. Sorry about that,
No,
bud.
I think you echoed exactly what I was thinking. Like, yeah, I think they would. I mean, I think, every Hall of Famer goes through this. Albert Pujols got bumped down the lineup when he was no longer a productive hitter. Miguel Cabrera, at the end was just a shell of himself. Salvi's not there yet, and Jeremy's right. If they had anyone better, sure. But right now, they don't really have anyone better, and Salvi's just as likely as anyone else to pop one out right now because no one's hitting home runs really. So until
Kyle Isbell.
Kyle Elizabeth, put him in cleanup at this point. I mean, he's been their hottest hitter. So, we'll see. I think they're going to, this is still early enough of the year. I think they're going to stick with guys that have a track record for better or for worse. But maybe Memorial Day, you start seeing some changes.
So speaking of changes, we brought up Hunter Renfroe a few times in the podcast already, and frankly, Royals fans around the interwebs have done the same. It seems like we have seen less Hunter Renfroe, but he is more on the minds of Royals fans than ever right now. And I think that the history can educate the future. That's where I stand on that. I know that's not an original take, but I don't care. And I remember one of the biggest in-season moves, or one of the first that he made, JJ Piccolo being he, was designating Hunter Dozier for assignment in 2023. Now, Dozier was bad for a long time before that date. This wasn't a sudden decline from the man at third base, but it was finally at that moment where they said, "Thank you very much. We're going to go pay you to sit at home or play against us. Best of luck." Now we're sitting here on May 15th. Hunter Renfroe's batting eighth tonight. They're heading back to Kansas City tonight. Like, do you think that the stars are aligning, Jeremy, that we're finally going to be free of Hunter Renfroe?
The problem with cutting Hunter Renfroe is that there is no obvious, and use that word very specifically, no obvious choice to replace him. They have a lot of guys that I would pick over him, that I think a lot of people would pick over him, all else being equal, but all else isn't equal. Hunter Renfroe has a big contract, or big for the Royals.
Big
He's got a, they're owing him $7.5 million this year, and as much as I think it makes sense to say, yeah, thanks Hunter for all you've done, good luck out there, let's give John Rave a try. Not because, but the problem is John Rave isn't a guaranteed solution. He's not even necessarily a likely solution. He's just a guy that you can throw at the wall like spaghetti and see if he sticks.
Yeah.
Make sure it's like one of those Velcro walls, though. We don't want to hurt him.
No, obviously not.
But that's the problem, is the Royals, and this has been a thing for as long as I think not as long as I've been a fan. I think they were willing to throw some spaghetti at walls before, but since Dayton Moore took over, this is something one of the things JJ Piccolo, I think, has held on to, is they don't want to throw spaghetti at walls. They want obvious answers. If we're going to call someone up, it's going to be because they're definitely an answer. No, he did throw spaghetti at a wall last year by calling up CJ Alexander for a couple of days. So maybe, and the reason I keep saying John Rave, again, is not because I think, yeah, he's definitely going to fix this. It's because, man, he's worked hard. He's shown some skill. I would really like to see him get a major league debut. I don't know if he'll ever be a major league player. I just want him to get a debut. I just want the guy to get a shot, a cup of coffee. So, and Hunter Renfroe's not offering anything. It would be hard to be worse than Hunter Renfroe, who, again, is not hitting and not offering anything defensively or on the base paths. The fact that we have Hunter Renfroe out there pinch running because we currently have to carry 3 catchers is just, that's not what you want.
That's
John
gross.
Rave can run. Almost anyone in the minors can run. Heck, MJ Melendez can at least run. So that's kind of where I stand, is, yeah, the Royals absolutely should get rid of Hunter Renfroe. I just don't expect it to happen until they feel like they've got a guy who's definitely offering something to the team.
Max, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be his 5th start in 10 games, which is like, at this point, why is he on the roster? Like, as a pinch runner, I mean, he doesn't offer defensive value. He's not hitting. I don't know what he's really providing. And I'm with Jeremy. I'm not even that big of a John Rave fan. And you mentioned that CJ Alexander. CJ Alexander came up here and was quickly showed he was overmatched. And some guys are going to do that. I mean, AAA there's a big gap between AAA and the big leagues. But I mean, I look over, the team we're playing this weekend, the Cardinals. It seems like they frequently call guys up that do well in the minors, who aren't heralded prospects, and some guys flame out, but some guys end up surprising and being really solid ball players. And maybe Ray will be that guy, maybe he isn't, but at least you find out. And he's been hot last week. He had a really good series last week for Omaha. And at this point, I'd say, you know what, try it. And like you say, at least he provides better speed on the base paths. He might be a better defender out there than Renfroe. And at least you try some different options. I think there is a little bit of an issue with the 40-man roster. I don't think the team likes to add guys to the 40-man roster unless they have to, because that makes it awkward if you have to get rid of them or clear up that roster spot. You have to clear them through waivers. I mean, it's John Ray. He's not young anymore. If you have to designate him for assignment, if he doesn't make it, so be it. Give him a chance. Let him see what he can do, and let's end the Hunter Renfroe charade.
As far as the 40-man roster goes, I have to point out that other teams seem to have figured this out. Atlanta has signed and cut Jesse Chavez like 10 times this year. I think the Rangers have signed and cut Dane Dunning a handful of times. So yeah, you got to cut John Ray from the 40-man roster. See you in Omaha anyway, buddy. You just figure some stuff out. It's not that big a deal.
No, it's really not in my eyes. And I forget who had it, but I think it was last month. Someone had a good piece up on Royals Review, especially talking about the outfield prospects, about like, hey, it's so bad right now. We just need to try and find out. Stop trusting the process with these guys when their best case outcome isn't that good.
And I know that this is a little bit of sour grapes, but I go back to Brent Rooker. The Royals were like, Hunter Dozier, he can figure it out. We just got to keep giving him chances. And they let Brent Rooker go. And he went to Oakland and immediately became a star over there. And if they had been willing to just actually give him a chance and say, you know what, Hunter, it's not working out. Say the same thing again. You know what, Hunter, it's not working out. And give the 4A guy a shot and see if he can do it. Like Max was saying, just give him a chance, because what else are you doing? And Brent Rooker, went on. He's having a great career over there in Oakland. I would hate to see John Ray. I know the Royals seem to have this thing where they don't want to let go of guys, because if they make it big somewhere else, then it looks bad for them. But doesn't it look bad for you if you don't give somebody a chance and they go and make it big somewhere else?
Yeah, I think so. Max, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to point out too, if you don't like John Ray for whatever reason, I mean, Nick Lofton leads the International League in walks. He's hitting well down there. Cam Devaney, who he got from the Brewers for Taylor Clark, is a utility player. So I don't know if he is a regular outfielder, but certainly I think could play out there in a pinch. He's tearing it up in Omaha right now. There are other options out there. It's kind of sad. There are other guys, maybe like Nelson Velasquez, could be getting an opportunity right now and seizing it if he was hitting it all. He hasn't done that. MJ Melendez could be right back up if he was hitting. He has not hit at all at Omaha. He's really struggling. So it's kind of unfortunate. Maybe some other guys haven't taken an opportunity, but there are guys that are hitting in Omaha that, maybe they would hit the big league level, maybe not, but let's at least give them a shot.
This is very tangential, but about MJ Melendez, I do want to say I'm actually it makes me happy a little bit. That's not really the word, but I'm blanking on the words I want to use, that he's not hitting, because that tells me he's sticking to the swing changes and really working through that. I feel like if he was already crushing AAA pitching, that would mean he just went back to what he was doing before, because it works against AAA pitching. So that might be a good sign.
I won't say I've been watching like all of Omaha's games, but I did see a couple highlights of him batting where he looked like he was doing his whole swing. He was very upright, very loosey-goosey with the stance. I don't know.
I'm trying to find a spark of hope around here, Max.
So I'm going to pour even more cold water on that spark of hope there, Jeremy, because I think that for as bad as the immediate answers are in the outfield for the Kansas City Royals, the depth on the 40-man roster is arguably even worse. Like the overall situation compared to other teams. Dairon Blanco, he's not hitting great in his rehab appearances for the Omaha Storm Chasers. There's a reason why he's still there. Then you have Tyler Gentry, who, frankly, I thought he was going to be more in the picture of the left fielder of the future. He's not doing great. MJ Melendez is doing awful. Tyler Tolbert, sorry, there's folks who like Tyler Tolbert. There's a reason why he only had 5 plate appearances in 13 games, okay? The dude can run. That's about it. And then Joey Weimer just hit the 7-day IL for the Omaha Storm Chasers, even though there's a little something there. He's been looking pretty good to start off 2025. But all that to say, there's no like clear answer even available on the 40-man roster to supplant these guys. We just want something. We just want something different to try.
You know what fans want, Jacob?
What do they want?
They want the jack wagon.
Choo-choo! No, I'm joking. We haven't settled on a sound for the jack wagon, so excuse me from outburst.
That is the sound of the jack wagon for sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Max, we'll get a copyright in on that. Don't worry. We'll give it to Royals Review. Free of charge. Free, just some intellectual property of ours. No, I'm joking. So I don't want to talk about the Royals right now anymore because there are a couple of other like big baseball things that we do need to talk about. Max, so I said that we wanted to talk about Rob Manfred's decision to hold on. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Basically, his decision, his letter, was going to make several formerly ineligible players eligible for the Hall of Fame in the future, not in 2026. Go ahead.
He was reinstating them. He doesn't control the Hall of Fame. He was relieving their ban on MLB, and the Hall of Fame has a separate rule that says if you're banned from MLB, you can't be voted into the Hall of Fame. I just want to be specific about the language.
And truth be told, this was one of those situations where you did need to go beyond the headlines to understand what was going on. There's a lot of moving parts, it seemed like, in this. But I think this has just added more fervor to the Pete Rose to the Hall of Fame discussion, because I know that got reignited a little bit after some more of the gambling stuff came out from current MLB players. After his death, of course, it did come up again. But Max, this goes beyond Pete. This goes into baseball at large. What do you think about this situation?
Well, so originally, players were put on the ineligible list. This goes back to the beginning of baseball. Shoeless Joe Jackson, 7 other members of the 1919 White Sox that conspired to throw the World Series were all put on the permanent ineligible list. Hal Chase, arguably a borderline Hall of Fame first baseman, was put on the ineligible list as well for jumping, I think, to the Federal League at one point and not honoring his contract. So it's a ban basically from baseball. You can always apply for reinstatement, and Pete Rose was put on that in, I think, 1989. Agreed to a ban, so this wasn't like the commissioner saying you were banned. He agreed to a ban. So as long as baseball didn't release its findings on his gambling activities, and he was allowed to apply for reinstatement.
That's a specific note that I either hadn't heard before or didn't remember, but it's an important thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so, because I have heard people say, like, well, he shouldn't have been banned unilaterally. Like, well, he agreed to this. It's like a plea deal. Like, he agreed.
Yeah. He would rather have been banned from baseball than anybody know what baseball found out that he did.
Right. And now he did later admit to gambling on baseball, and there's evidence that he...
But then he recanted that, didn't he? Didn't he say in the end, no, I didn't do it?
I think eventually he admitted to... Well, I know he admitted to it in a private conversation with Bud Selig at one point, and then I think... And I could be wrong, yeah, you could correct me, but I thought at one point he did publicly admit that he had bet on the Reds, but not against the Reds.
Yeah.
Which, again, is a distinction I don't think matters, because if you're trying betting on the Reds, that means implicitly you're not trying as hard for those other games, perhaps. And in any case, any impropriety of wagering, of having people in the game wagering on the game, is going to be a major black eye for the game. So anyway, so he agreed to the ban. At the time, there was no explicit ban by the Hall of Fame, though. The Hall of Fame did not formally take a stance saying that you are banned from the Hall of Fame. Now, Shoeless Joe Jackson had been on a couple of ballots and had virtually no support. So there, and that was from the writers, baseball writers. But he was not formally banned from the Hall of Fame. After Pete Rose was banned, the Hall of Fame said you're banned from the Hall. If you're on the ineligible list, as long as you're on the ineligible list, you are banned from being in the Hall of Fame. So that's why he's been ineligible up to this point. Now, he's not on the ineligible list anymore. He's presumably eligible for induction. The Hall of Fame has said yes, they will. He could be on the ballot for consideration in the future. They don't know. I mean, they're going to announce who's going to be on the committee to decide the next committee to be in the Hall of Fame for this year. I think he still faces a pretty tough challenge. I mean, I don't think there's a groundswell of support necessarily among people in baseball to put him in the Hall of Fame, and there's certainly going to be public pressure against putting him in just because he is such a controversial figure. So it's by no means a slam dunk that he'll be in the Hall of Fame when all is said. It's
No, I don't think it will be either. But Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this situation?
So my thoughts, and this is going to be controversial.
Oh, let's hear it.
My thoughts are, I don't care if you cheated. I don't care if you gambled on baseball. Should you do those things? No. Should you get suspended? Yes. Should people hate you for the rest of your life, like Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa still get booed every time they go to Kauffman Stadium, even though the Royals weren't competing that year, so it's not like it hurt them at all. But Royals fans get real mad about it still. And I know Jose Altuve gets booed a lot of other places, and I just don't care. What I care about is the stuff that's gone around Pete Rose being this being heard to potentially come off of the permanently ineligible list. I think we all understand what's happened there, the politics that have been going on. One thing that interests me and is that I was reading about this morning, and at least one baseball writer out there, Craig Calcaterra, thinks that they might, when they create the next committee that Pete Rose would be eligible for, they might stack it full of people who would vote for him. So that's something to watch for in the future, I guess. But I also, in a lot of ways, I don't care if Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame or not. It's not hurting me any. I think he's an awful person, not just for the gambling. There's other allegations that have been leveled against him that are, to me, far, far, far worse than the gambling stuff. When I see someone, especially when it comes to gambling, if I see someone who's gambling, I think that person is a victim. I think that person is a victim of the gambling complex and their own addictions. And the fact that we don't treat that kind of stuff in the United States of America, we don't treat it as an illness. We treat it as you don't have any self-control. What's wrong with you? And so that part of Pete Rose, I don't care about. I don't hold it against him, but the other stuff I don't like. So I would, in that sense, I don't really want him in the Hall of Fame. But for the rest of that stuff, the cheating, the being a kind of annoying nitwit, that stuff I don't care if he gets in or doesn't get into the Hall of Fame. It's the politics around it that bother me, and it's the fact that he's just not a very good human being outside of these other things that bother me.
And I think that's the only aspect of this discussion that I would say I appreciate, Jeremy, is because this is really focusing once again on the person versus the player. Because I mean, Pete Rose, he was an amazing player. There is no question. When he was alive, when he was playing, after his death, I don't think there was anyone out there who said that Pete Rose was a bad baseball player, who wasn't a Hall of Fame caliber player. However, if you want to let these guys shine in Cooperstown forever, is that a guy that you want shining in Cooperstown forever? Me personally, no, I don't want it, but I'm not going to bang the drum against Pete Rose getting into the Hall of Fame. I think that the voters are going to do plenty of that themselves, but I'm not a guy who grew up watching Pete Rose play. I'm sure that there are, I don't want to say like a certain percentage. I'm sure there are plenty of current voters who are in that group, and I'm sure that's going to sway them a little bit. But
Well,
like you said,
he
Jeremy,
won't go through the regular Hall of Fame
he'll go through
voting
the
process.
committee.
He'll go through the Veterans Committee.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought they were going to put him on a ballot in a few years. I'm so sorry, guys. Well, then that does change things a little bit. But we'll see who they stack on that committee, Jeremy.
That will, to me, that's the more interesting part of all this is, do they stack a committee to make sure he gets in, or do they just pick whoever they would normally pick, and does he get in then? That's the interesting thing to me, and I don't know that we'll ever have a true answer to that one, honestly.
And how much political
Anyway.
pressure do those 16 members get from both sides? I think there's going to be a lot of intense
Right.
pressure to both vote him in and vote against him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like I said, I don't think it's a slam dunk at all that he gets in.
And the less reported aspect of this that has been reported but is less reported is the Black Sox scandal guys are all now off the permanently ineligible list. And I like that. I grew up, I saw the movie 8 Men Out, which makes those guys seem really sympathetic. And I'm like, well, no wonder that they gambled and threw the World Series. You wouldn't pay them. You wouldn't treat them like valuable human beings. Of course they want to screw you, Mr. Baseball owner man. So how much of that is true, how much of that is dramatized, but that's my vision of what happened. And so I'm like, yeah, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Eddie Seacott, you guys should be celebrated as super baseball players. Whether they get in the Hall of Fame or not, I don't know. But whether they have Hall of Fame cases, I don't know. I just know that I have a lot of sympathy for the plight that they were under. Because baseball players were not paid millions of dollars back in the early 1900s.
Nope. And teams basically kind of owned the baseball rights.
Yeah, they didn't. Free agency is still a relatively new thing.
Yeah, that it is. Max, any thoughts? Any more thoughts before we move on?
No, I just I agree with Jeremy. I think Pete Rose his prime is before my time, but I mean, obviously he did not conduct himself very well as a human being. I think it's been pretty well documented. He's a degenerate gambler. I think he probably could have been reinstated at some point if he had just kind of forsaken, gambling and said, I'm done. I'll get some rehab. I'll stay away from it. I'm sorry. I'll admit it. And he just was not willing to do that. But that being said, I think it's silly to have a baseball Hall of Fame that doesn't recognize the best players. That includes Pete Rose. That includes Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens. And I mean, so to me, to be on the ineligible list permanently, the reason for that is because he was such a threat to the game. I don't think that should be sugarcoated at all. I don't care if he bet just on the Reds. I don't even care if he bet as a manager. Betting on baseball while you are in the game is a cardinal sin, and it very much undermines the integrity of the game. And it should be harsh penalties for that, and to keep him away from the game. So keeping him away from baseball is one thing. Keeping him out of the Hall of Fame, I think, is only a punitive measure. And if you want to make it a punitive measure, I get that. It's a deterrent. It says don't get involved with this stuff at all, or else you will suffer some consequences. But now that he's dead, I think I see less of a reason to punish him, and so I'm okay with having him in the Hall of Fame. If people say I don't want him in the Hall of Fame because I think he was a bad guy off the field, I completely understand that position. My thinking is that I want to judge these guys as baseball players, not as necessarily as human beings. Although I certainly understand you don't want to give a platform to really degenerate people who have been involved in some pretty shady stuff. So, it'll be interesting to see.
I wonder if there's room, and this might be antithesis to your kind of thoughts as well, Max, is I wonder if there might be some kind of room to include people who are not good people, but are very good baseball players in the Hall of Fame, but have a,
rogues gallery,
black or whatever, be like, yeah, he's not a good person.
Well, and that gets tricky because, so Ty Cobb has a really bad reputation as a racist, right? But there's a lot of counter arguments that, oh no, actually that's because of one sports writer that didn't like him and kind of took things out of context. And so, some of these guys may have been bad, some of these guys we're all flawed, complex people that do bad things and good things. I'm not trying to be relativist and saying Pete Rose is not that bad. He was a bad dude, but he was a complex man too, who did a lot of good and a lot of bad things too.
Finding the place to draw that line of when do I put a marker on the plaque that says he wasn't a good person, that would be extremely difficult. And you kind of come into that who is without sin cast the first stone kind of situation there, probably. So that's probably not tenable, but it was a thought. It's hard enough for sure.
Basing these guys on the stats. Once you start bringing up this police blotter, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alrighty, folks. Well, so we were gonna talk about stadium stuff. Listen, folks, if you want to know all about stadium stuff, you could just go check out royalsreview.com.
Yeah, the Missouri legislature is going to wrap up this Friday, so we should probably know by the end of the week whether or not they pass anything that's going to give the team a chance to stay in Kansas City. I mean, this team has been so quiet on this. I don't even know if there's a sense of urgency at all at this point.
This whole thing has been so weird, right?
Because that's the worst part.
Rush. They didn't have they had a quarter-baked plan last spring, and we're like, you got to do it right now. And everyone's like, you don't even have half a plan, guys. Why are you rushing this? And then silence ever since from the team. Where was that sense of urgency that we had to do this right now that you had a year ago? This is the most bonkers thing I think I've ever seen.
Maybe they're doing a listening tour.
Ooh, maybe. It's listening all over the state of Missouri. All right. One piece of Royals news I just completely glazed over. Rich Hill joining the organization.
A guy my age.
Yeah, I know, right? Max, do you think you get in the cage and start warming up for the Royals
If I
outfield?
was left-handed, maybe, but apparently, left-handers, teach your kids to throw left-handed because you can pitch forever. Rich
I
Hill made
guess
his
so.
major league debut the day after Bobby Witt Jr. turned 5 years old. So we'll see if he makes the big leagues. He'll be the oldest guy in the big leagues if he does. Interesting move. I don't know what it means, but good to have depth, I
He
guess.
would he would also be this would be his 14th team. If he played in the majors, this would be his 14th major league team, which will be a record.
I think it
Right,
ties
which is
Octavio Dotel. Does it tie or
no, I
does it
he
pass him?
surpasses.
Okay.
Yeah, because Octavio has 13,
Rest in
so
peace, Octavio
should be interesting.
Dotel. And
Yes.
who am I missing? The other guy, the pitcher, Edwin Jackson. I think also has
I was
13.
trying to think of his name too.
Records live forever. But Jeremy, I think that this is something that speaks to what we were talking about on the last episode, even about how the Royals pitching development and kind of their, I don't want to call it a pitching lab, but their new pitching approach is going to attract some of these fringy free agents who I get it. You're not coming in and expecting Rich Hill to compete for the closer role or nothing like that. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. If you're looking for a wily veteran to help round things out in Omaha, I think you could do much worse than Rich Hill trying to keep his career going.
Yeah, you raise a good point. I wonder if this is a kind of a Bull Durham situation. If you remember, they call in, they signed the lead actor, the lead character catcher to basically be an on-field coach for their new pitcher. I mean, Rich Hill is primarily coming in to mentor some of the young guys in Omaha. But yeah, I would be kind of surprised if he pitches for the Royals. But every team is going to make some of these minor league signings. We saw the Royals do this last year. I think, what was his name? They signed some pitcher who had been good once before but was getting kind of old, and everyone's like, is he going to come to the big leagues sometime soon? And he never did.
Ross Stripling
Yeah.
in spring
Yeah.
training.
Ross Stripling, yeah, these guys, and the trade for Nick Gordon that then he was cut. You just it's kind of the roster churn at the bottom of the roster. That in the NFL, these are the guys at the very bottom of your active roster or on your practice squad. In baseball, they're in Omaha.
And Omaha did sign.
Or
Omaha signed two other major league veterans, lesser known, Steve Nogasek and Trevor Richards.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if Omaha just is stockpiling arms or the Royals feel like they needed these guys, but they are filling up some rosters.
Yeah, and I'm sure that fan speculation, I've already seen some of it in the Royals review comment section about oh, well, why are we adding all these arms in Omaha? Is a trade coming, this, that, or another thing? You can never have enough pitching ready for the show. We all know that as baseball fans. Alrighty, guys, anything that we're missing, anything that y'all want to add before we get to reviews?
Max has got to go.
I got a jet.
Well,
Sorry. It's all right.
I'm
That's
so
all right. That's my bad. I should have managed the time.
yeah, of course, man.
Thanks for joining us, Max.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so let's see, I will cut that in. Alrighty, folks, so that is going to do it for the show. Max had to step out for a little bit, so we're just going to do our reviews.
He was
That sound good?
He was like, I got nothing to review. I can't talk to you anymore. Goodbye.
Do you have something to talk to us about, Jeremy? Do you have a review for today?
I'll think of something by the time you finish your review. How's that?
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to review another energy drink. I do these every now and then. My wife, Honey, she really likes these Alani Nu drinks. They're zero sugar, low serving is what I call them, instead of like a 16 or 24 ounce energy drink. They're 12 fluid ounces, which is enough for her. She got this new flavor probably in March is when she started drinking. It's called Blue Slush, and I really like it. It's really just tastes like that old school blue raspberry drink that reminds you of your childhood. I don't think anyone out there really likes the flavor of blue raspberry. I think it's just a memory thing.
Flavor, Jacob.
Jeremy, I think it's just a nostalgia thing.
No, it's
what even is a blue raspberry?
Flavor. Blue raspberry, not red raspberry. Blue raspberry.
Have you ever seen a blue raspberry on a tree?
No, okay, so there's a story why blue raspberry exists.
All right, let's hear it.
Because the red food dye that they wanted to use for raspberry was poisonous. So they were like, don't use that anymore. Put blue food dye in there. Call it blue raspberry. And blue raspberry was born.
Well, I was just trying to rally you up there a little bit, Jeremy. But I do like this. I did. I do like this flavor. So, Jeremy, I'm don't think you drink energy drinks.
I've never heard of it. I need to try it, obviously.
She gets these at Target, but like I see them at convenience stores all over the place. This isn't a niche brand or anything like that. So Milani News Blue Slush.
You gotta type that out for me in a text message or something. I can't pronounce that.
Sounds good. Jeremy, did I give you enough time there?
Sure. So I'm going to review.
Oh boy.
I'm going to review here. You nostalgia. You want to talk nostalgia, Jacob?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Combos.
Oh,
Those
yes.
the convenience store treat.
Yes.
That's like you've got a cracker or pretzel outside, and then you've got some kind of cheese filling on the inside. Man, I loved those when I was a kid. They're not good, but I keep eating them as an adult because of the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And there you go. I love combos, and I will never not love combos. You can't make me stop loving combos no matter how bad they are.
All right, Jeremy, on the count of 3. So 1, 2, 3, say. We are going to say our favorite flavored combos. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, pizza.
Nacho cheese pretzel.
What? Okay. All right. Fair enough. I thought you would have liked pizza. I love the pizza.
I mean, the pizza flavor is good. I love fake cheese. Fake cheese, like give me some of that spray cheese, the easy cheese or whatever. I mean, yeah, I'm just like one of my favorite snacks when I was in college was pork. I was on low carb, right?
Okay.
My parents were like, we're all losing weight. We're on low carb. Get some easy cheese and pork rinds. Not this is the least healthy thing in the world, but it was low carb. So I was eating that all the time. I was eating whole bags, and then I was like, why am I not losing weight? I don't understand.
Well, that might explain.
A whole bag of pork rinds with a whole bunch of fake cheese on it.
That is
what
crazy.
What could possibly go wrong with that, Jacob?
Nothing, obviously, because it's low carb, Jeremy. Okay, you were sticking.
Now I want to, I was going to say now I want to go have that again, but the last couple times I tried that, it did not taste good, B, made me feel very sick. So I don't think I will do that again. But if you're in college and you're a little broke and you're like, what's a nice snack? Some easy cheese and some pork rinds, baby. You've gone silent on me, Jacob. Your microphone has crashed on you again.
I don't know what's going on with my microphone. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, I think you're good.
That's so weird. Okay, let's see here. What was I saying? Well, a couple of food reviews. I don't think we talk about food very often in our reviews, but thank you for that, Jeremy.
Absolutely.
And we're going to go ahead and get on out of here. I got a thunderstorm in the background right now. Got to go make some dinner. But if you want to follow along with us on social media, support us further, we would greatly appreciate it. Our links are down in the podcast description below. Plus, Jeremy and I, we're still trying to figure out this playback thing. It is going to be a great tool for watching Royals games with Royals fans. Just gotta hammer out how that looks in our schedule. So stay tuned for more of that. But most importantly, go check out RoyalsReview.com for all the news, analysis, and commentary that you need on all things Kansas City Royals. There, Jeremy Greco. I am Jacob Milham. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And until next time, go Royals.